I welcome the bill and I commend the Finance Committee for the work that they did in relation to the pre-legislative scrutiny on the bill and on the various recommendations that came from that committee. And I would ask the Minister in his response, would he deal with each and every recommendation so that we know what the standing of the Department is in relation to it, to the report rather, and to the recommendations. I want to put on record too that there have been many whistleblowers down through the years, and I think the one that should have been listened to at the time of the financial crash was Jonathan Sugarman. He came forward and did what was expected of him in accordance with legislation and reported to the central bank. No one from the state has ever commented positively in relation to Jonathan Sugarman, but when you examine his case, you will see that as a whistleblower, he was poorly served by the state. And I want to recognise, as a member of this House and Chairman of the Finance Committee, I want to thank him for coming forward, for doing what he thought was right, which was right, was within the law, and I want to condemn the authorities around that case who did not take the appropriate action and did not give Jonathan Sugarman the type of respect and protection that he required at that time under law. And that is what happens to whistleblowers. They make the complaint and then they become the victim. Maurice McCabe was someone else who blew the whistle extensively, and luckily for him, he had a strong wife and family who saw him through that crisis. But what the state did to him was again shocking, a shocking example of how the state can beat up its own citizens. Now, recently we debated the Grace case in this House, and it's interesting to note that the whistleblower in that case lost her job. She's no longer employed in the agency that she was in. And it's also a terrible reflection on the state that the DPP would say that there's no prosecutions to be taken against agencies or individuals relevant to Grace and indeed the 47 others. What an absolute disgrace that is. And in some way, that office must be held responsible in the course of our work in this House. And I would ask the Ceann Comhairle, which I did in writing, to bring forward some sort of method by which that can be discussed here, because it certainly doesn't make sense to me that the whistleblower would be fired and that the woman who was not able to express herself in any way and was mentally and physically challenged, that no one will pay a price in the courts for what happened to her. If you think that it's gone away now, 2014 bill deals with everything else, you would be never more incorrect. Because at present, for example, in Nangashka, you have that particular agency funded by the state getting huge money, paying huge money in legal fees to defend a position that they hold on an employee, which is just indefensible. There is no defence in terms of what they're doing. But yet, they're doing the usual thing that the state would do. They're pushing the individual to the pin of their collar and breaking the individual and their family. Currently, again, in CIT, and I've raised it here numerous times and will continue to do it, because it's an example of the bad legacy of the past being brought into the new structures for the present and for the future. A whistleblower there went to mediation, is now being hung out to dry. I've appealed to the Minister, the Taoiseach, and others to please intervene and get it sorted. Nothing has happened. And I think that that too is a shame. I want to refer to Noel McGree. who is a whistleblower, won his case and is still being challenged by the Department of Justice. So on the day that we're bringing in and discussing this bill, there are people out there that have been treated in an horrendous way by the state, and they continue to do so. And it begs the question, where is the political leadership that would turn around to them that are causing this difficulty for the individuals and say, stop, you are not doing this in the name of the government. You are to treat these people fairly and honourably and in the way that the existing legislation describes, or indeed in terms of the new legislation that we are discussing here today. Seanie O'Brien is another man, badly treated by the state and the prison services, end up as a broken man along with his family, and still currently there's no effort being made to reach out to him. John Barrett blew the whistle in the Public Accounts Committee in terms of the guards, the numbers, the figures and what was happening there. He lost his job. He's gone. Same way with Julie Grace in Galway, another lady who came forward, and our own minister will not deal with it, and it's dragged on and on for years. Shane Kavanagh, EBS, same thing. In the private sector, they're out of a job, and the AIB will not respond to them. And finally, I want to say this. Lucia O'Farrell is a case that her son was murdered on the road, but in terms of whistleblowing, she has outlined in her part of her investigation the failure of the state in relation to the DPP, the guards, the courts and so on. And it would be a great exercise for the state if they were to examine that case and listen to it. And we passed a motion in this House in the last Dáil for a tribunal of sorts to be put in place to deal with that case. And of course, typical of the political system, is do one thing in opposition and another thing in government. The departments, and I'll finish on this account, Cora, in terms of the generality of this bill, the departments have insisted on putting in place confidentiality clauses which prevent the state from learning and prevents us from learning from the failures of the state. And I asked the question, Minister, tell me how many departments have insisted on confidentiality clauses, and tell me what the cases were settled for, because you're conning the people and we need to know the truth.